The air freight cargo business is one of the best to use to make lots of money pretty quickly in GTA Online. However, it is fairly complicated, especially with the many changes that Rockstar have made with the business over the years. In this video, I will explain everything you need to know about this business, from the initial setup to lesser known tips and tricks and everything in between, as well as how much money you can make with this business. If you enjoyed the video and find it useful, consider dropping a like and subscribing. Also, feel free to check out the description for all of my other business guides. To get started with Airfreight Cargo, you are going to need some initial seed money like most other businesses in online. In order to run this business, you're first going to need to purchase a hangar, and there are 5 total options available to choose from, with all of them having their own unique set of advantages, so it's important that you pick the right one for you. The best hangar for most people is likely going to be one of the 3 options inside Fort Zancudo. Not only do these give you full access to entering Fort Zancudo without a wanted level, they're also closer to the majority of the sourcing missions, with a total of 33% of the missions being in or around Los Santos, and the other 66% being on the northern side of the map, in Paleto Bay, Grapeseed, or Sandy Shores. However, the Fort Zancudo hangars do come in at a price premium, costing between $2,085,000 for Hangar 3497, $2,650,000 for Hangar 3499, and $3,250,000 for Hangar A2. If I was to suggest one, it would be Hangar 3499 because it will allow you to spawn a personal vehicle within Fort Zancudo, whereas all of the other hangars will end up spawning the car across the swamp or on the highway. The only other point I will make is that 3497 is the closest to the aircraft spawn inside of Fort Zancudo. So if you exit your hangar without a plane or a helicopter during a mission, you will have some running to do. Now in Los Santos, there are 2 other options which I don't really advise you to buy. However, they are slightly more convenient to get to the hangar than the Fort Zancudo ones. They just lose out on the benefits that we discussed earlier, like the sail missions and things like that. However, they do allow you to spawn inside of the airport if you die in the airport, which otherwise you would spawn outside of the LSIA fence. The first LSIA hangar is A17 for $1,200,000, or Hangar 1 for $1,525,000. When it comes to upgrading the hangar, there are really only 2 upgrades that matter. The living quarters, which will allow you to spawn at the hangar, which will be very useful as we'll talk about soon, and the other upgrade that's worth getting is the Hangar Vehicle Workshop, which will allow you to modify aircraft inside the hangar. This is essential for upgrading air vehicles with things like countermeasures, engine upgrades, armor, weapons, and more. The other available options are simply cosmetic, so if you have the money, then kit out the hangar as you see fit. However, if you're on a budget, don't worry about anything else at all. Now, if you want to maximize how much money you can make with the hangar, you may want to consider purchasing the Higgins Heli Tours location in Los Santos. Now, by simply owning that business, your airfreight cargo is going to be worth 10% more money when you sell it, which is worth considering. It'll cost you $900,000 to purchase Higgins Heli Tours, and you'll also need to own the hands-on car wash business first. Something to note here is that you do not need to maintain the heat level in Higgins Heli Tours to get the bonus applied to the hangar, meaning you can leave it at full heat and still get the 10% bonus permanently. If you plan to use airfreight cargo a lot, I would say that this is absolutely worth getting. Unlike many other businesses in the game, once you've purchased a hangar, you're pretty much ready to go and get started with making money from it. There are 2 ways to source airfreight cargo: manually and with the hangar technician, Rooster. He operates similarly to the CEO cargo warehouse technicians. He's just worse in every single way. We'll talk about Rooster in a little bit. Now, the main thing to know about hangar sourcing is that there are a total of 8 different types of goods that you can source and then sell once you're full. However, not all of these good types are worth the same amount of money, with tier 1 goods like narcotics, chemicals, and medical supplies being worth significantly more than everything else. Even though you should never source them, animal materials, art and antiques, and jewelry and gemstones are the next most valuable at tier 2, with counterfeit goods and tobacco and alcohol being worth the least of all at tier 3. So this means that when you actually source, you need to get narcotics, chemicals, or medical supplies in order to make the most money in the long run. The reason for this is that each tier of cargo has a different level of bonus associated with it. So for all 50 airfreight cargo crates of tier 1 items, you'll get a 70% sale bonus. However, for tier 2, you'll get a maximum bonus of 60%, and for tier 3, you'll only get a 50% sale bonus. Just so you guys know what that ends up looking like after all 50 crates, tier 1 crates will be worth $2,550,000 if you have 50 of them. Tier 2 crates will be worth $2,400,000 if you have 50 of them, and Tier 3 crates will be worth $2,250,000 if you have all 50 of them. I'll put this graph on screen to make sure that the different bonus percentages as well as the total payouts for each tier of crate. Something to note is that the cooldown between source missions is different depending on the tier of crate that you're sourcing, and if you're sourcing solo, these will be the cooldowns. A tier 1 crate cooldown will be 4 minutes, a tier 2 will be 3 minutes, and a tier 3 will be 2 minutes. There's an additional cooldown penalty for each crate that you source, so if you have another player in your CEO helping you source, add an additional minute, and this scales up to 4 extra minutes of cooldown if you're sourcing up to 4 crates at a time. Now, to avoid the cooldown, I recommend sourcing 2 different types of cargo. For example, sourcing narcotics and chemicals back to back avoids the cooldown in between sourcing missions. If we also refer back to the graph I showed a minute ago, you'll notice that at 25 crates, the tier 1 cargo types get a 35% sale bonus. So sourcing them this way is pretty much just as good as sourcing only one cargo type. It just avoids the cooldown, but you effectively get the same bonus. Now, as I said earlier, there are 2 ways to source. Now, we're going to be focusing on manually sourcing first, and to do this, you simply go to the computer in your Hangar office or to a master control terminal or the terabyte computer. Unfortunately, there's no real advantage to starting a source mission anywhere other than the hangar itself because of the RNG of where the mission is actually going to spawn. The terabyte computer also doesn't allow you to choose land or air, so it's not worth using at all. Now, when you go to select a crate to source, you'll be asked if you want to source by air or by land. The air missions are the original way to source air freight cargo, and they're the reason everyone, including me, hated this business for the first 5 years it existed. The air missions simply take way too long to complete, and they're known to force you to use terrible vehicles, so the best thing to do is to source by land. These missions are generally much simpler, however there is one type of mission that is extremely long, which we will talk about in just a minute. Now, despite that these are land missions, it doesn't actually mean that you have to use a land vehicle. I recommend the Oppressor Mark II or the F-160 Raiju to do these quickly and effectively. The great thing about Hangar Cargo is that if you get a mission you don't want to do, you can set your spawn location to the hangar if you have the accommodation upgrade and swap sessions and then go back and start a new source mission and hopefully you have better luck next time. Now, if you start a land source mission and the objective says any of the following, you should instantly switch sessions. If it says go to Paleto Bay, if it says go to El Burro Heights, or go to the Alamo Sea, that is a dead giveaway that is a terrible mission. Any of these missions are going to make you go onto a barge, clear it out, hit a switch, drop a crate into the water, then you're going to have to get in a submarine to go down and get the crate that gets dropped into the water, then you're going to have to bring said crate to the shore, which is way too far away almost all the time, and then the crate is going to be loaded into a mule after a cutscene. Luckily, once it's in the mule, you can blow up the vehicle and the crate will drop on the ground next to it, so you can take it to the hangar with an aircraft. However, these missions are just so tedious and long that I recommend skipping them altogether. Now, just to make sure, you can always check the map when you get one of these missions to make sure it is one of the bad ones before you skip it. If it's going to direct you anywhere near the water's edge, whether that be in the Alamo Sea or the regular ocean, you know it's a bad mission and you should skip it. Other than this mission though, the other 3 types are very easy and straightforward to complete. For the Infiltrate the Deal missions, simply go to the location and there will be a trailer for a truck that you're supposed to drive back to the hangar and a bunch of enemies. However, like the mule, you can blow up this trailer and the crates will drop on the ground, where they can then be picked up from an oppressor, Raiju, or on foot, or in any vehicle you choose. Simply take the crate back to the hangar, and that's the mission complete. You don't even usually have to clear out all the guys at these missions either. Next up, we have the plane crash mission, which will spawn exclusively in Sandy Shores or Grapeseed or in between. You can spot it quickly by looking for a helicopter flying above it. Simply go and grab the crates that are scattered around the mission and take them back to the hangar, but you do have to lose the cops before you go back. Although, if you're in Fort Zancudo, it really doesn't matter, the cops aren't going to go in there anyways. Now, the other kind of missions are the ones where you're going to need to blow up a generator, which will open a door, and inside that door there will be crates that you've sourced. Pick them up and go back to the hangar. Easy as. These 3 missions are very simple and fast to complete. Typically all of them take under 5 minutes unless something really bad happens. The second option for sourcing is Rooster, which, like I said, isn't the best, and there's a good reason for this. While you technically can make money by sending Rooster out to get you crates, you cannot control the type of crates that Rooster will actually get for you. This means that your Airfreight cargo slots will be getting filled up randomly, therefore losing you the ability to get the bonuses from sourcing single types of cargo. Rooster also only has a 25% chance to bring back a second crate, and it takes him 48 minutes of in-game time in order to source your crates, leaving your profit margins pretty thin and taking up quite a bit of time as well. And most of the time he's going to bring back a single crate worth $30,000. And considering you have to spend $25,000 to send him out in the first place, you're only making $5,000, which is not much money. The only way I would advise using Rooster is if you want to be mostly hands-off with the Hangar business and try to generate money fairly passively. Other than that, I don't really recommend using Rooster. Similar to when you go to source, when you actually start a sale mission, you'll get to choose the option whether you want to do it by air or by land. And the land missions are significantly easier, so I will always recommend choosing these when you do your sales. The real beauty of the Hangar cargo business comes in the form of the land sale missions, in which there is only ever one vehicle, meaning that selling solo is extremely easy. However, if you have people helping you sell, you can get multiple vehicles, but it will be multiple vehicles that deliver to these same objectives, meaning you can split up the drop-offs to make the sale mission go by faster. When you go to sell your Hangar cargo, you can sell good types individually, or you can sell them all together. If you have multiple good types, from using Rooster as an example, I recommend just doing one big sale of all different good types. Unless you have enough of a specific type that you get a bonus, then always sell those individually. This business also does benefit massively from the high demand bonus, which you can get from selling in a crew lobby or a public session. If you're interested in joining a crew that hosts sale lobbies, consider joining my Discord server linked in the description. From there, you can get access to our very safe crew lobbies. Now, there are 4 different types of Hangar cargo land sale missions, all of which are very easy. The first one we're going to go over is the truck and trailer. Simply pick up the trailer using the truck that's provided and drive it to the drop-off location, where you'll typically have to reverse in. So hopefully your reversing skills are good with the trailer. You can also use the Iron Mule on these sale missions to fly the trailer where it needs to go, and then spawn an MOC or a Phantom Wedge close by to pick up the trailer and finish the drop. If you do decide to use the Iron Mule, just make sure to mark the drop-off location manually on your map before you get out of the truck. Otherwise, when you get in the air, you won't know where to go as it disappears from the minimap. The next sale mission is using the Vapid Ratel to complete 5 drop-offs that are entirely off-road and generally pretty far away. There are enemy Mavericks that will spawn at some drop-offs with gunners, however you can ignore them or pretty easily take them out. This mission is quite easy and relatively quick. There's also another off-road mission using the Nagasaki Outlaw or Maxwell Vagrant. This one will feature 10 drop-offs in total, again, mostly off-road. And the final mission uses the Arena War Issy. This one will always be 10 drop-offs, and they will always be in Los Santos. Now, to break down just how much money you can make with this business, we need to break down how you're sourcing and how you're selling. We also need to factor in if you own Higgins Heli Tours or not for the additional 10% bonus. If you have 50 full crates of tier 1 items like narcotics, for example, the Hangar full sale will be worth $2,550,000 without Higgins Heli Tours. However, it'll be $2,805,000 if you do own Higgins Heli Tours. If you sell in a full high demand bonus lobby, it'll be worth $3,825,000 without Higgins, or $4,207,500 with Higgins Heli Tours. Now, if you decide to source all 50 crates from Rooster, it'll cost you approximately $1 million, and you'll have to send him out roughly 40 times. The crates that he brings back will be worth approximately $1,500,000 without any potential bonuses from sourcing enough of one good type to get a bonus. So averaged out, you'll make about $500,000 in profit for sourcing with Rooster once you have all 50 crates from him in your hangar. I think the math pretty clearly indicates the better route to go. However, if you want to be pretty much hands-off with the business, sourcing with Rooster isn't the worst idea ever. I'm really grateful that ROCKSTAR took the time in 2022 to remedy the hangar business, as it was pretty awful before it was changed. However, now it's easily one of the top 10 best businesses in the entire game to make money. I think considering if you like aircraft in GTA Online to begin with, you'll probably buy a hangar anyways, and at that point you might as well run the business too, because it's really good at this point in the game. I really hope you enjoyed or found something useful in this guide. If you did, let me know what it was in the comment section. Consider dropping a like and subscribing for more videos like this. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care. Peace.